just adore fresh asparagus. And I think I'm terribly serious about it, so I always go to a market that takes asparagus very seriously and lovingly. Because I found that a lot of markets just don't seem to care very much what they do with it, and they let it sit out where it all gets dried up and stale. And if you notice, when you see a big crate of asparagus like this, there's always a piece of cotton or sort of material that's absorbent in the bottom, and it's supposed to, the bottoms or the butts of the asparagus are supposed to be kept moist. And if the store is not going to keep it in a crate like this and keep it moist, they should at least stand it up in bunches so that the butts are standing in about ½ an inch of water. Because you have to think that asparagus is just like a flower, and you have to keep it moist and cool, or else it just dries up and it isn't good. So I pick a store very carefully, and I also pick one where I can pick all the asparagus personally so that I can get them all the same size. And when you're buying asparagus, you want to be sure. I'm going to show you an example of a good asparagus and a bad asparagus. Now here's a good one. You want to make sure that the butts are quite moist and that they're firm and even all the way up the end. And then at the end, the tip is tightly closed and the little scales are just nothing but scales. That the asparagus doesn't look like this. Now look at the tip here. It's beginning to get loose, and rather than having scales, there are little flower buds that are coming out underneath. And this one also has a dowager's hump, which means that it isn't very good. It's maybe a little old, and it has a fissure going down through the middle. So that if you can pick out the asparagus yourself, you'd never pick one like this, which is a bad example. You would pick one that was fresh and green and straight, like this. So if you pick your store rightly, you'll be able to get the kind of asparagus you like. And I would suggest, if the butts seem a little bit dry, that you gather all the butts together and then just cut off a little bit until you get to the moist flesh, and then stick it in a pot with about ½ an inch of water. Because again, like a flower, if the butt is in water, the asparagus will stay fresh. And then I usually put a plastic bag over it and then stick it in the refrigerator, which means you have to peel it. And that means taking a little knife and cutting off about ¼ inch of the butt and then peeling all the way up until it gets very tender up about 2 inches from the top. And how deeply to peel the butt depends on how fresh and young it is. And you can always tell by looking very carefully, and you peel just as deeply until you get to the moist flesh. If it's sort of dry and stringy, that means you've got to peel a little deeper, and then you slant slowly upwards until you come to the very tender part. I'll do one more. I like the knife better just because I'm used to using it. This one is green almost all the way down and very tender, so the butt just needs a little shaving. And be sure that you have a very, very sharp knife, because if you have a dull old thing, you'll find that the peeling is very difficult. Now, if you don't like to use the knife, you can try the vegetable peeler, which I think is a horrible system, because it all gets caught in the peeler, and you can't get deep enough on the butt. Now, here's a French vegetable peeler. It's a knife that has a little guard on it, and this is used by French restaurant people. And you lie the asparagus down and just peel. And I have here on my board 2 cooked asparagus. And this is a cooked, unpeeled asparagus. It's of top quality. And I just want to show you when you cut it. This is just a plain table knife. And it cuts, and it cuts, and cuts. And as you get down here, it gets a little harder to cut, and it's sort of stringy. You get down to here, and it's very stringy. So you can't really eat that part. Now here is the peeled asparagus. Cut, 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 getting down to the butt. You see you can cut perfectly easily all the way down, just with a plain table fork. And you can eat the butt. QED, as they say in the, whatever it is, I guess it's geometry courses. It's so long ago I can't remember what it was. But I think if you make this experiment yourself, you will find that it is absolutely conclusive.